I'm just gonna give strict instructions. Like, if any of us gets knocked out, just pick up the camera and start filming.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care for our well-being. Just pick up the camera. That's fine. Just keep filming.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Thanks everyone for tuning in for another episode of the Scoped Exposure Podcast, Isolation Edition. We're going very far around the world, across the pond, as they say, to talk to one of my favorite Europeans, David Tan. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Doing as well as I can right now. So David is a good homie that we've made a friendship online, never actually met in person, which I think a lot of hardcore friendships probably start before an initial meeting. But how about you tell maybe the few folks at home that might not know what you do or how you're best known in the community over there?
Cool. So I advertise myself as a fake 856. I'm the discount 856. So if you need stuff filmed in the UK, I'll be like, cool, I'll do it. And, you know, it won't cost you an entire airfare to get Sonny to fly from America. But no, like, I started filming sets by myself, but recently, over the last few years, I've started getting friends and just random people that have kind of like popped up around the UK to help me out. And just it's kind of gone from there. And yeah, like, I'm probably most well known for doing Outbreak Fest. That's been the last few years I've been able to capture that, and that's been a really cool opportunity. But yeah, I'm just doing the same as Spicy Spence, basically.
Yeah, and I think, you know, Sonny being kind of the leader and front runner for this kind of hobby, you know, naturally it's, you know, people will come to me and say, oh, I'm the Canadian 856, or you're the European 856, or, you know, what have you. But yeah, there's a lot that I want to unpack there. So let's kind of dial it all the way back and get a little bit of context on how you got into hardcore or just heavier music in general, just so we can fully understand how you got to where you are now.
Cool. I started out, I was originally kind of in like emo and metalcore bands, but then a band was looking for a bassist, whereas I usually played guitar, but I was like, I'll give it a go. Their vocalist and their bassist had left the week before and they had recording booked like 2 weeks after. That band was called War Charge. We did pretty well. Like, we played Outbreak twice. We did Europe continually. We toured with Bentley for 3 weeks in Europe. Things like that. And like, before we finished up, we did like 3 weeks in Asia as well, which is really cool. Wow. So yeah, I mean, like, my introduction to hardcore was kind of just from starting one, not really knowing much about it. But then kind of getting introduced to bands like No Warning, Carry On, Guns Up, things like that, and kind of going from there.
So No Warning was one of the earlier bands that you were put onto?
Oh, definitely. Like, the first tour we played, us and a band called Risk It from Germany were playing the same show, and we both did the same No Warning cover. So that was interesting.
You're like, oh, who did it first in the show?
We did it first, and then they were like, fuck you, we were going to play that song. And we're like, well, that's fine. You just play it, and then we'll just sing along in the pit, and it's fine. Everyone knows the song. It's fine.
Yeah. No, that is funny. Like, oh, now people are going to be like, oh, this band did it better, or, you know, whatever. Yeah. At least you set the stage.
They definitely did. Yeah, they definitely did it better, so it's fine.
So the actual process of like filming bands, you know, I think that's kind of unique for like a lot of people, because I can probably count on two hands on the amount of people who are doing the video archiving side on a fairly consistent basis versus like I filmed one fest and, you know, that's it. But did you always have a background in videography, and how did that I guess what was your what were the early days of like David Tan Films, and how that came to be?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of started out, I was more into like film photography and like using VHS and stuff when I was away on tour, just as a way to like, for kind of like memories and stuff to post online.
Right.
I would do like tour videos, things like that. But the first kind of time I decided like I want to film bands was, I can't remember the year, but it was the first time Turnstile played the UK. They played Outbreak Fest, and it was just that insane that it kind of looked like This Is Hardcore that I'd seen in obviously film Sonny's videos and stuff like that. And after seeing that set, that's when I was kind of like, I want to start filming bands. I want to start doing this. So from then, I started out obviously the fake GoPros that everyone does, doing sets like that. Then moved on to DSLR, and mostly just obviously filming like friends, bands, things like that, the way most people do. But then kind of, I think because there was such a lack of people doing it in the UK at the time, more people were asking me to do it. And especially when Max, who was called Baron Bones online,
Okay.
he used to do all the fests and his stuff is incredible, but he moved to Australia. So I think after that, there was kind of a lack of people in the UK doing it. So it kind of gave me a space to start filming more and more bands.
Yeah, and that was kind of similar for me too. Like there was someone who was kind of filming sets at shows when I first was getting into the hardcore scene, but it was like GoPro on like a Gorilla Pod, like not great audio. And I don't try to knock those people, because the fact that they are taking time out of their day to like press record on a camera and capture this stuff, I think is really important and vital. And quality is subjective. But yeah, I do think that, as I started to ease in a little bit more, he started doing less. And, we've talked a number of times being like, yeah, like, your stuff is great. So like, what's it allowed him to take a step back in a way. And I've said that as well for like, if someone came onto the Calgary scene or the Canada scene and was filming bands and like doing a great job, I would probably pull back a little bit to allow them to shine and, get more experience. But the fact that there is no one who has that passion or that dedication, it's like, well, I'm the only one who's going to be doing that.
Yeah. I mean, as we know, it takes a lot of time and effort to get it done. So yeah, it takes a kind of special kind of obsessive person to actually do this kind of thing. But
for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe we can riff on that a little bit. Because, Sonny and a lot of people have made the joke where it's like, you take the memory card, people might think you take the memory card out of the camera and just slap it on the laptop and, it's online. But, anyone who actually digs even past that surface level and knows there's a lot that you and I could do on the post-production side to really make a band or a set shine. So maybe just pull back the curtain a little bit about how much editing you do. What's your like normal process? How maybe what your average time to get like a single cam or a multicam set out is, and just to give people a little empathy, I guess.
That's fine. I mean, I think I saw Gabe posting some meme the other day on Twitter, and it was about like people asking for the raw photos to be sent across. And I kind of thought about it. I went and checked, and we did a counterpart set, which was 3 cameras, but like that alone is 80 gigabytes.
Right.
And like, just even keeping up with like the memory you've got to keep and stuff. Like I just have a pile of like 8 terabyte drives sent at the side that like takes so much. But I mean, yeah, like I think it's kind of dependent. Like if I am editing, I realize I used to be faster, but I think it's because I was paying less attention and just going with the multicam frame by frame, just not stopping to kind of check stuff over. Whereas now I do, and I continually go back to make sure I'm kind of happy with each cut. So I'd say I only, to be honest, really get through editing 1 set a day at most. Like 2 if I'm like kind of starting very early and finishing late. But I think I'm just getting a bit more picky in my old age, that I want every cut to kind of make a bit more sense and it doesn't seem quite so choppy. I just want it to kind of seem like you are there and it's like, you capture that moment in time, things like that. But yeah, I mean, like I think if I concentrated, which is probably my main problem, I could probably do quite a few sets in a day, but I'd rather just sit down. I mean, my main issue is with audio, because I hate audio with the biggest passion in the world, because I can just never get mine clean enough. we continually have like desk feeds fail, or like engineers mute the channels, things like that. So I need to try and rescue it from like one little backup Zoom I've got at the back of the room. So yeah, to be honest, like video I could probably do quite quickly, but it's the audio side, like I need to like try and mix it, which doesn't always happen. But
Right.
yeah, but like I say, audio is probably the thing that takes me the longest, but that's probably why it takes like a full day to actually edit and get it up there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm in a similar boat with you, is like, you know, recognizing strengths and weaknesses, you know, that,
Yeah.
you know, things just get naturally better over time. And the more that we have the ability to, you know, because you look back at like some of the very first sets that I ever filmed, and it's like, you know, I'm, you know, not really like anticipating as much, and just like things are out of focus, and audio is a big thing. Like I've seen that growth over the longest time, but even now I'm very critical of like getting things to really, really pop.
Yeah.
And audio seems to be the thing where things can go wrong, where devices can fail, or things can get corrupted, or, you know, things can get booped, you know, mid set. You've had a couple pieces of gear either smacked out of your hands or kicked out of your far too many to recount.
Just every show. Like, nah, like to be fair, people are mostly like, at least in Glasgow, people are like very wary of space and stuff, because like we do film a lot of very small spaces where, like, to be fair, if I'm standing in a stupid place, hit me, because that's my own fault. Like, it's about the performance, it's not about me filming it. So like if I'm standing right in the middle of the room, fucking punch me. I don't care. Like, go for it. That's me being an idiot. But yeah, I mean, like, we did a sold out ceremony show in London, and that show alone, we had a zoom lens break. My lens got chipped and the screen on it got smashed. The audio recorder got smashed as well, and various other things as well. Like, yeah. Like, filming hardcore shows is fun, and like I think when you film other things, you realize what you're missing because there's not that kind of energy and like things about it.
Right.
But it's also quite dangerous for filming, but it just makes it more interesting. That's fine.
Yeah. Do you remember who was playing that show? Like that's got to be some pretty like vicious bands to like encourage that kind of ignorant moshing.
It was quite cam bands. It was like one band's called Child's Pose, which is kind of like quite a spacey, just like indie rock band.
Okay.
The second band's called High Viz, which is, I don't know how to describe it, it's still kind of indie-ish, but then it was Ceremony headlining. So everything was fine until Ceremony came on. And then it was like a 200 cap room. Like, it was, I've never been so, well, to be fair, that room, like when it's sold out, it's always oversold out. So like the walls are sweating and like you can barely see. Like, I kept wiping down my lens every 30 seconds because it was getting that hot. But it just makes for a more fun atmosphere. It's fine.
Yeah, luckily I haven't had many actual pieces of gear break on me. I've had the odd, like, you know, someone, you know, boop the front of my lens on a stage dive, and things like that. But I think that's, like, I always tell people, it's just like a matter of the environment that you're filming in. Like, you know, it's no different than if you're going to a show and someone hits you in the face. It's not like their fault. Like, shit happens. Yeah.
I think you get that instinct as well. Like, as you said about like instinct about filming and where you should be, you get an instinct of when a straight elbow or foot is about to hit you in the face.
Right.
So like, I think you get it there.
Yeah, and multicam filming it's at least nice to like I can duck down knowing that probably Jordan on the other side of the stage is probably gonna catch that angle.
It makes a great meme afterwards as well if you almost getting kicked in the face.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That's,
it
that's
adds
content.
that level of like, you know, just intensity in the video when things are just like shaky like that. Are you normally opting to always multicam the majority of your shows? Because something I did when I was first starting out, and I didn't even have like the scope team, it was just Spencer. I was setting up GoPros, I was, you know, throwing cameras in other people's hands, and for, at least in my experience, for a while I felt like that was overkill, especially if I'm doing like a small local show. For a fest, I totally believe like 2 or 3 cameras is like entry, like that should be your starting point. But for a small local show, I'm usually opting just for a single cam, but I'm curious on what your take on that is. If you feel like adding that extra camera on the other side just adds that extra level of flavor for your videos.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of the same. Like, I was just filming by myself, and I would occasionally have like a second backup camera. But these days, at least in Scotland, I've always got people that want to film. Like, my main partner in crime, Kat, she is generally up for anything and everything. So generally, yeah, it's kind of at least like 2 cameras, maybe 3, because like I've got like other people called like Greg and like Ross Tierney, like so many other people that luckily like are into doing it and stuff. So I prefer to do multicam if I can now. Like I did, there's a band called Lote from Liverpool who they've had like a lot of press recently because like the Deftones bigged them up because they're kind of similar to them, things like that.
Oh, cool.
But I had to do single for that for the first few bands, and I just hated it. I had a stationary back of room camera, and I barely cut to it at all because I don't know, stationary cameras just, I don't like them anymore. Like I don't like cutting to them. It just feels kind of strange, and it doesn't capture the kind of like energy and action and stuff. Yeah, like it just kind of kills it. So yeah, I mean, pretty much I'd say like 90% of the sets we do these days are all multicam.
Mm-hmm. And you know, you were mentioning some of the bands out there, and I've actually been like put on by a number of like UK bands because of your channel, and you know, especially a lot of I think we've talked about this before, but one of my favorite UK bands is Guilt Trip, and you know, if it weren't for you, I probably wouldn't have any live videos to watch of that band, and hopefully I get to see them one day, but watching your videos is like the next best thing. So is there any, if you wanted to just laundry list shout out like any key bands that you feel like you put on your channel and maybe it only gets like a certain amount of views and you're like, man, this band needs like 4 times that?
I do it every time, but Vent are a new band from Glasgow. They just dropped their demo, but they played a bunch of shows before it. But like, it combines a bunch of different stuff. Like, it's got the kind of like full of hell noisiness, but then it's got kind of like catchy riffs like Turnstile and stuff, and it puts it all together and it works. Like, fully back that band. But then also kind of like, I filmed a bunch of poppy bands recently that like I've been really into. Like, if you can't admire like a massive chorus, like what's the point?
Right.
But like there's a few bands like Big Spring from Brighton. They've got kind of like their vocalist really sounds like the guy from Incubus, Brandon, which is really cool. But yeah, I mean, like, trying to think of UK bands on the spot, I'm really bad at it. Plead from Brighton are really cool. I know you've got a Plead as well.
Yeah, I have talked to Tyler about that. But that band, are they still a band or have they broken up?
They're still a band. I mean, I think they're fairly recent anyway. They've been like less than a year going. I've only seen them once, but like, yeah, I think they've played like a handful of shows anyway.
Right. Yeah, I remember Plead, like, or Tyler from Plead hit me up and he was like, oh no, like he was just, well, like, you guys sound totally different. You have a different logo. I think you're fine. So
it's impossible to not, find another band that has had your name at some point. Like, all my bands have been bands before. You just give into it. It's fine.
Right. Yeah. Is there one band, because I think a big thing for Scoped is because we're in such a weird like route as far as where bands tour from, and I'm sure you can kind of find some similarities in our regions, even though we are on opposite sides of the world. Bands need to come over either for a festival versus it's a lot more to tour, but are there some bands that you have filmed more times that you can account for? Because when people think of Scoped, I think people opt for like certain Western Canada bands like Mortality Rate or Stepping Stone or Serration or Worldview, but are there any bands that you have filmed either from its origin or existence and have almost documented every show?
I mean, like, we're pretty much the exact same, because obviously the UK, usually you can play any other city down south in about a 2-hour drive. But to come to Scotland, you've only got Glasgow to play and it's 5 hours up. So like, a lot of bands aren't willing to put that in. So, I mean, before all this quarantine thing happened, we'd usually get maybe like 1 show a month, something like that. So I think we are quite similar in the way that, bands don't too often come out
right
our way. I mean, the bands I've probably filmed most would be Revolve, metalcore from Glasgow, Revulsion as well from Glasgow, Vent, I've also already mentioned, and my bands get filmed a bunch because luckily I've got an amazing team that will film me being a dickhead on stage, so it's great.
Yeah, and I definitely wanted to hit on that because you play in two bands, and those bands are Afterburn and wait, is that right? Afterburn and Slow Burn?
Slow Move.
Oh, Slow Move. I think I mean,
it is
writing on my
it's
notes
the
like late
same
at night,
members
so
with a different vocalist. Yeah, it's the exact same members with a different vocalist, so it basically is Slow Burn anyway. But
yeah, but you're doing vocals in Afterburn, bass in
bass and Slow Move.
Cool. And that was something when I first started doing Scoped, like I was kind of playing in some bands, but then when I moved to Calgary, I didn't start any bands until like earlier last year. Yeah.
But what bands
earlier
they
last
are.
year.
What bands they are.
Yeah. What was that? Can you say again?
Your bands. That's the good shit. Like.
Thank you. Yeah, but like what was kind of going through your head? Because at least for me, when I was like, I have a team that I can be like, okay, Jordan, you're going to film this show because I'm playing it, and it's just easier if you're just manning the camera the entire time. But was it a little surreal to like, edit, sets that you had played and, have to think about the things that you think about all the time when you're filming other bands and you're editing them? But I'm just kind of curious if there was any new thoughts because it was you on the stage versus anyone else.
Yeah, like it is kind of weird. Like, I don't know, especially because you know the songs better than obviously anyone else is going to see notice when there's mistakes and stuff like that. But to be honest, like I actually quite enjoy it because I know the songs. I kind of roughly know when I'm going to want to make the cut in each bit to kind of focus on things.
Right.
And obviously, like if other people are filming, they might not know the songs that well, so they might not have caught that part. But I kind of know roughly when I want to make the cuts and things like that. The only kind of weird part is like if it's not a good set, and then the rest of the band don't want it online, and it's just like other people have filmed this and have put all this effort into editing it, and then you don't want it online. But I'll give bands a certain amount of times where I'm like, right, okay, you can like. I won't put that one online, but like after so many times, I'm just going to stop filming you because it's not worth either of our effort, like filming and editing this.
Yeah.
To bin it. Yeah.
And that's like I wouldn't say that's a common thing, like that bands are always telling me like, hey, can you not upload that? I feel like at least like regionally, I know how certain bands feel. Like I can respect if a band either doesn't want to be filmed, like I know certain drummers who are like, they don't want to have drum cams, but they're okay with their like band, having a set. So like, I'm totally empathetic and understanding of that. And at least for me, when I was like starting to play shows and have my bands coming out on my channel, I had to really practice what I preached in the sense of like, oh man, this set wasn't good. Or like, Remy's strap broke and he was like playing bass on the floor. Because what I tell bands is like when shit like that happens, like it's small stuff that shouldn't be sweated, and especially for us, it's like, well, I need to, if I'm saying that, I need to do that for my bands as well. So, I've gone into detail about that, and then people are like, no, this set's great. So it's kind of like a reinforcement of that. For me, at least. I
mean, end of the day, it's hardcore. It's not meant to be perfect. It's not meant to be pristine. Mistakes happen or like things break. You just go with it, and like I don't know. I'm just kind of more of the mindset of, like it's not meant to be perfect unless somebody dies on stage. Then like it's fine. Like
right,
everyone's not perfect all the time. It's cool.
And I think that there's it's always kind of the thing on the videographer side where I think, I like to tell I don't want to add my bias to the story of the set in a way. Like I like to put everything on there. Like I've seen some sets where people are cutting in between the songs and they're like skipping out on all the, you know, things that were said in between, or like, you know, someone flubbing up and, you know, saying something. But I like to just keep that authenticity there.
Yeah.
Obviously, if
I used to do that, but that's only because I was like, my arms are dying between songs and I'm doing this by myself.
Right.
So I'm going to put the camera down for a minute. So I used to do that, but I fully agree. Like, I think it's far better. And like, some bands are funnier when they're not playing, like, or not funnier, but like they're more entertaining when they're not playing because the vocalist just has like good chat. So like, it's good to include that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And it's, you know, like if someone's only pressing record when the band's playing, like you could miss, you know, something that's said that gets shared online, and that's the thing that, you know, it's not even the music of the band, it's like the thing that was said in between the songs that could propel the band as well. So
yeah,
for me, it's always like just keep things rolling. And like you said, if there's something that's like super dire, like someone, you know, like there's been times where like someone's been knocked out at a show, or like something, you know, drum pedals have broken. And for me, it's like, I think it's important to like not like focus in on that, but like, you know, showcase that. And then if there's like 5 minutes of just dead air and no one's saying anything, the vocalist isn't really filling that space, and it's just like kind of weird. Like, yeah. I know there's going to be drop off on the viewership side in that set. So I'll just like, okay, this is happening. Quick jump cut to when they're back and ready to go for the next song.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you had anything where you've needed to like do something like that at a show where, you know, someone, you know, had like an arm broken or anything like that?
Yeah. It was Archangel, we're playing in London, and a guy got pretty badly knocked out. So yeah, like, I mean, there was nothing happening, so like I did cut it. But it does kind of come back in because the band just started playing again before the guy was properly out of the venue.
Okay.
So there's a part of video where it's literally like two guys carrying him and another guy just kind of swinging his arm backward and forward to try and stop anybody from hitting the guy. But yeah, like if something like that happens, then fully like I'll just cut it there and just merge it back into when the feedback of the guitars or something starts. Just, yeah, there's no point in having like 5 minutes of dead air, as you say, because yeah, what's the point? So
yeah, like it's also easier on like the syncing side if it's just like all the cameras are running and it's not like you gotta, you know, stop it and then resync where it is with the audio.
Yeah,
but yeah, like, you know, there's I remember like Endgame's very first show, we had like this like Avengers like soundbite as our intro. And then it got messed up, and then we just like kind of was like, oh, fuck it, and we just like started ringing it and playing. And then when I was editing it, I'm like, well, this kind of feels weird, so I'm just gonna start it where we started ringing in. And
yeah.
You know, I guess like it's a producer's what am I trying to say? I think it's like because it's my band, I can have a little bit of more flexibility with it, I guess.
Yeah.
So you were mentioning Outbreak Fest a lot at the beginning and well throughout this podcast. And, you know, I am always curious, especially like if you can give light to that, if there's, you know, people who have no idea about like festivals or hardcore shows out in the UK or Europe in general. And obviously, like once this whole like quarantine is over, I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of people who are just going to be eager to get back out in the world and start going to shows. And maybe, you know, hopefully this podcast is a way to kind of help promote you, but also the shows and bands and festivals you're involved in. So could you give me a little like, you know, elevator pitch on Outbreak Fest and why you feel like that's a great fest for people to travel when they're obviously allowed to travel?
Yeah. Outbreak Fest, the best hardcore fest in the world, full stop. Nah, like Jordan, when he's doing it, he always has like a really good selection of bands. Like he's kind of at the level now where he's had pretty much every single big hardcore band play. Like the last few years has been like Code Orange, Turnstile. They had Breakdown playing a reunion set like halfway through the day and stuff. Fury play it quite often, which I love because I love Fury. Like Twitch and Tongues, Vane, like any kind of big hardcore band, but also he has kind of like the best of the UK as well, and he'll usually try and get a band from Europe as well, just to try and make sure it's like nice and balanced. And he's not scared of kind of putting what some people might not be into in the middle of the day, but like obviously everyone loves Title Fight. They headlined one year, but like that might not be some people's idea of a hardcore fest. Citizen played last year. A band called Sharptooth, I don't know if you know them.
Yep.
They played it as well. I think people were maybe a little bit skeptical because it's not the kind of hardcore they're used to seeing, but I think they really like got the crowd on their side, and I was like, fully fair play. Like, it's not your kind of crowd, but like people have definitely been won over today. But yeah, I mean, like people all over Europe from America and stuff fly over for Outbreak even before the announcement's made quite often. I'm just hoping this year can happen. I'm kind of doubtful, but
when does it usually happen?
This year's massive. Sorry?
What time of year does it? It's in the summer, I'm guessing.
It changes every year, but this year it's meant to be June, and it's meant to be like Knocked Loose and hundreds of other bands. But Jordan, I think at the minute he's trying to keep it on, but obviously it just depends on what the government decides and like how easy it is to fly in and out and stuff like that. So
yeah.
We'll see.
Because it's not just people who are going to the fest; it's bands who are also going to play. Those are things that I'm even considering and trying to keep top of mind for our Scope anniversaries. We try and make it bigger as far as number of bands and things like that every year, and we have some cool things cooking. But again, we don't want to try to move the needle forward if legally we can't ask bands from the States to come up, or if there's still caps. That's going to be like August, but still it's like we're kind of living in that uncertain time right now.
Because when was Wild Rose supposed to be?
So Wild Rose was supposed to be end of April. Like it's the first as far as recording this. And like I think as it's got like, I feel like Canada's doing all right versus like, down south in the States. Like I can't even imagine the stress that, a lot of my friends are dealing with at the moment. But as far as like, just trying to do our part and, flatten the curve and things like that, like it was, I sent a message to the guys, but it was like, it's the tough move, but the right move. And, it's honestly heartbreaking to see so many people who are either creatives who can't go on tour and make money, or bands who can't go on tour and make money, or promoters that have lost tons of money because of flights and venues. And I've never seen something in my life come to an alarming halt all at once.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, especially just seeing posts from venues and stuff like asking for help. And yeah, I said like solo creatives, like a guy that always works with me in London, Owen Diplock, he's just like a full-time videographer freelance. So at the minute he's fucked, and like it sucks to see because there's nothing you can do other than pretty much everyone's applying to work in supermarkets just now because that's the only sustainable thing that actually offers jobs just now. But yeah, like it's seeing an entire industry just be killed off so quickly. It's just terrifying.
Yeah. And like I've kind of said that hardcore is kind of like online right now, and we're getting to a point where we're really slowing down on the amount of sets that we're releasing every week, and not in the sense of like we don't like, I like to keep things timely, I like to get things out as soon as possible, but to kind of really, I guess for lack of a better term, drag it out. So it's like, okay, we're eventually going to run out of sets, but it's going to be like mid-May and there's only going to be like 2 a week. But we're also trying to do like more podcasts. We're trying to do other content initiatives. How are you doing as far as like what's on your plate and how much you have that you can release still?
I've tried to work out a few times. I think thing is, I haven't slowed down. I'm still doing sets Sunday through Thursday. So I currently have enough to keep going, I think, until probably about the same time, like maybe early May. But I have been sitting on drum cams for ages because I just didn't know what to do with them. I didn't know if people were interested in actually watching them because they had just been on the Patreon. So I think I'm going to start doing the drum cams online, and I'll also start doing... I've got a few old VHS sets and stuff that I've been digitizing still that I can still post online. So I think that should take me until hopefully the end of May, start of June. So I'll probably be able to keep going for a while at least. But I think the way you're doing it, like trying different things and doing all the podcasts and stuff, is a great idea because, like, obviously people are stuck at home. The more content you can give them, the better just now. So doing a public service.
Yeah, and like I think as far as like I don't really consider myself an entertainer. I just think of myself as a content creator, and I think it's super valuable to be like, you know, not wanting to just like beat the COVID-19 horse, like, but you know, it is the topic on everyone's lips right now as far as like how it's affecting their lives, how it's affecting, you know, the things that they're involved in. But obviously it's not like, you know, I did my one piece as far as like, we're only talking about this, and now it's just kind of like, well, we're in the mix of it, and, you know,
yeah,
just going.
It's impossible to escape. It affects every aspect of life just now. So yeah.
Yeah. Have you thought about doing anything different as far as like trying different kinds of mediums for your channel, or is it kind of like once I run out of stuff to like post as far as an archive, then it's just going to be, you know, silence until, you know, things chill out?
Oh, that sounds so good. That sounds fucking incredible to me. Silence for a while. No, like I don't know. I did kind of put out the post just saying like, if any bands want like a practice room set filmed or something like that, I'll do that. I had like a few bands kind of hit me up, but they're just a bit too far out to kind of make it work just now, especially with kind of the lockdown and stuff. But like, as well as sets and stuff, I do have a bunch of interviews I've done a while ago that I might put online. Like I've got one with Sonny that I did when he was over for the Have Heart shows in Europe.
Yeah.
So I need to edit that. I just haven't had the time. But this was all kind of intended to be used for a documentary, but I might even just kind of edit them as different episodes or something maybe, and put them out weekly or something like that. If I do totally run out of things to do, just to keep something for people to watch. And yeah.
Right. Yeah. And there's a couple things that you hit on there that I want to chat about, but maybe we can first talk about Sonny coming over to film those Have Heart shows. And then he asked you to kind of be involved. Can you talk to me about like, you know, what was going through your mind over those first couple messages, how you guys, you know, because I think he provided all of the gear to use as far as those kind of things. So I think we both use some kind of DSLR form, and his camera's a little bit more, you know, hunkier, I guess.
Yeah. Well, like I first met Sonny when he was over for, there's a record label called Carry the Weight that put out most of the good stuff in the UK a few years back. They did like a Final Fest which had like Integrity and Sonny's favourite band 108 playing, so he came over to film that, and I met him at that, and we sort of filmed like at the same time, and I sent him my footage if he wanted to use it for multicam. But yeah, for Have Heart, I had already mailed the promoter for the Leeds shows just because there was basically 2 German shows and then 2 Leeds shows the same day because it sold out so quickly. So and it was Outbreak Fest putting it on, so I messaged Jordan just being like, hey, can I film this? I'll get people together to do it. Then I think maybe like half an hour later, Sonny was like, I'm thinking of coming over and doing all 4 of the Have Heart shows. How many of them can you do? And I was like, I'll just do them all. Like, I don't care. That's fine. I'll just fly myself out. So yeah, like I flew across to Germany and then met him, Tower, who does Tower Media, who does a lot of German shows, and Adam Harazim, who does Roughneck Media, who does like a lot of German fests, things like that. And yeah, we ended up doing the 2 European shows together. And then we came over, the most horrible night ever of like no sleep, getting to the airport after like 2 hours of Sonny sitting and backing up his footage in the apartment I'd rented, which was of no use because we didn't get sleep. Seeing Have Heart and Abuse of Power at the very back of the check-in line and being like, are these bands going to actually make it to the UK to play these shows? Not sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then for the lead shows, we filmed with my boy Sean Pitcam, the one and only, and Lukas Targosh, he used to be, I've forgotten the name of the channel, but it was an Edge name. That's as much as I remember. But his channel was really cool in the UK for a while. So yeah, it was the four of us filming the 2 lead shows as well. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was 0 sleep for 4 days. But thing is, like, I wasn't a massive Half Heart fan, but I knew the crowds were going to be insane. So I was like, this will be cool to film. But yeah, like I said, Sonny's gear, it is a lot bigger. He uses Canon proper video cameras, whereas I use Panasonic DSLRs. So it took a little while to get used to it, but it's actually really nice to use because you can just kind of like throw it about in different positions, and like
everything's
the
like
focus is really
not
good.
set to auto in a way, but you know, you don't have to do as much two-hand kind of work.
Yeah.
It
is weird though, because the focus and the zoom is on the same kind of rotation, so you need to like click a button to change between the two of them, so it gets a little bit confusing at times. But no, they're quite fun. Like, I'd quite happily use them again. But no, I mean, it was cool to just film something so kind of monumental as those Half Heart shows, because obviously they were a very big deal to a lot of people, and done for a good cause as well. So.
Did you I guess because it was like Half Heart and, you know, it was Sonny reaching out to you, like, did you feel like that was like, oh, this is a great, you know, opportunity just to do it with Sonny versus like, you know, like, oh, like it would be really nice to have it on my channel, or was that not really going through your mind?
I mean, yeah, it was kind of a bit of both. I was like, I would like to have this on my channel, but working with Sonny will be cool.
Right.
And obviously the amount of effort he puts into each set, especially with like the audio and stuff, getting that professionally mixed, I was like, he's going to do the best job. So I'm quite happy to like spend my own money to like fly across to Europe and just like help him film this and like be a part of something like this. But no, like the wanting on my own channel was kind of in the back of my mind at points, but I was like, I know that Sonny will make the best job of this, so I'm quite happy to like just be there as a additional camera.
Yeah, and I think like you know, there's been times where I've talked with Sonny like about, you know, hey, if I came out to like This Is Hardcore, like, can I just help you film? Like, I don't want to do anything, like I don't care about like doing anything for my channel, like I just want that as an experience. So there's been some discussions, but there's also like things that, you know, Wild Rose, where he came out in 2019, he was supposed to come out this year, where there was talks of doing stuff together, but because it's not like, to me, it feels like that's my like This Is Hardcore in a way, or your Outbreak in a way. But for Sonny, it's like, it's another fest, and especially in that like festival summer style, like it's easier for him just to do it solo, and you know, and then we can do our thing. So that seems to be the recipe. But you touched on something earlier, and I was blown away when we first talked about this. But you know, I think a lot of people don't understand space in areas that they don't understand. So like, you've told me that you, instead of, you know, for me, if I want to go film a show in Vancouver, like I can drive, it's 12 hours, or, you know, take a hour, maybe 2 hour flight. But for a lot of the shows that either you're asked to go to, or, you know, this is a big enough band that you want to, you do a lot more flying to shows than you do driving.
Yeah, I don't drive because I'm a peasant. So I started driving lessons whilst I was in a band, and I was like, actually, I don't want to drive the van, so I'm going to stop doing driving lessons. And then I just never started again because I'm an idiot. So yeah, for me, it's train or flying. But yeah, it's a lot of flying.
I love how you stopped doing driving lessons because you just didn't want to drive the van on tour. And that's just kind of stuck with
sleeping
you.
on the floor of the van is so much better. Like driving, sleeping on the floor of the van, sleeping on the floor wins every time, like 100%.
Right. So like in the normal world, like how many flights were you probably doing? And maybe it is like in Canada, it's fucking expensive to do any flying domestically or internationally. I think it's cheaper out there, but how many flights were you taking for shows like in 2019, for example?
I I mean, to be fair, like I can usually get flights to London from Scotland for like between £30 to £50 return. So I think it's probably quite a bit cheaper than Canada. But yeah, I mean, I was like usually kind of July, August is obviously like festival season, so it would usually be like 4 or 5 trips to London back and forth in like the space of like 1 or 2 months.
Wow.
A lot of it now is just like going by train because it's just a bit cheaper sometimes, and especially with kind of the amount of gear that I need to take places, it just ends up being a bit easier. But obviously things have been kind of quiet. Things are always quite quiet at the start of the year anyway, so I didn't really have much to film at the start of this year or the end of last year. But it was this was about to be the period where we're going to be doing a lot of flying and kind of trains and stuff because all the festivals, but obviously they've all been cancelled. So luckily I hadn't booked anything yet.
Yeah, and I think that's so crazy though, because Canada is kind of in a weird spot where everything is stretched out. Like even if you go to Eastern Canada, there's a bunch of small towns in that like Toronto area, but like the fact that you can fly to like another major city and like a very small amount of money is it's honestly pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean it's like an hour on the plane from Scotland to London, so it takes longer to get through customs.
Yeah, that is so crazy. Are there any?
Yeah, but you've got the best bands. You've got Mortality Rate. Like you just hold on to Mortality Rate as like one of the best bands, and yeah, you've already got one over us, so it's fine,
Well,
I get it.
Let's talk about that because so that was like fall of 2019 that Mortality Rate and Suration came and did a UK run, and you filmed both of those. Well, you filmed that Glasgow show, and that was really cool for me to like watch a set of a band that I filmed well into the double digits, probably both for Suration and Mortality Rate, but just to get your perspective on like how you film those bands and just seeing people in your scene going off of them, that was really, really special. Was that interesting on your side to be like, hey, here's a band from Canada, and then all your audience is like, this is so sick?
Well, I think thing is, I don't think many people had heard of Suration when they came over, but I think a lot of people knew who Mortality Rate were.
Sure.
And yeah, I mean, it was just a good show. Like it was a very, very small venue. It's only like, I don't know, maybe 80 to 100 capacity or something. It's like underneath a vegan restaurant. But no, just those bands were both like really nice. Like Jess knows Greg that films with me sometimes, and his girlfriend Ina, so like they all kind of knew each other. But yeah, they were just really nice bands, and like I've thought Mortality Rate were great for a while, so like I was just really glad to see them, to be honest. I can't remember, like I'm pretty sure I flew from somewhere. No, I was in Sheffield the day before filming a show, and then went straight to Glasgow and then filmed that. So I was pretty fucked, but it was a good show, and like just everyone going wild, people singing along and shit. Yeah, it's always good.
Yeah, and like something that I'm really bummed that didn't end up happening on our end is like Wilder was this year, we're supposed to have the very first UK band, which is like Cauldron, and you filmed them a number of times.
Cauldron are the sickest. I was so gutted when I saw that happened, purely for them. Well, for the festival as well, but a lot for Cauldron, because I was like, that's fucking massive, and you're gonna kill it. And then it didn't happen. Yeah, devastated.
Yeah, and I really hope that those guys, either as Wild Rose gets rescheduled for next year, if I'm sure that they're either gonna try and make that happen, because anybody that I talked to locally or online about bands that they were excited about, like Cauldron was always like in the conversation.
Yeah.
Like and we were gonna do a podcast with like Fraser as well when they were out here, and maybe that's something that I can still do just in this format. I think it's really cool when bands take that like big financial leap to like play a new part of the world. And Calgary, in my opinion, maybe I'm biased, but I believe Calgary is known for like showing bands a good time when they come through, because they know how far away it is, especially if someone's coming all the way from the UK.
Last thing, your videos show to them like how wild a scene it is, and like a lot of the names that you get through on quite a regular basis are bands that obviously we want to see as much as possible, like See You Space Cowboy, Dying Wish, like all those sets you put up. It's like, damn, I want to see him play with those bands.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there certain sets, at least on your channel, that have like really popped off? That, because you mentioned Dying Wish, and Dying Wish at least is probably one of those bands from a international basis that have like lots of people like know about Scoped because of that Dying Wish set, or like that's one of the first bands that they were like, oh man, like I want to keep up with this channel because they're feeding me good bands. And obviously like Good Homies, like I love everyone in that band, but I'm curious if there's any more regional bands that that you feel that rings true for your channel.
To be honest, like my channel is probably most well known for turnstile sets, just because of stupid shit that happened during them.
Right.
Like locally wise, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. Like I obviously like don't want to claim a band like getting a show or whatever purely because I've filmed them and other people have seen it, because like obviously it's their own merit. Like they filmed it, I just happened to capture the moment and was there at the time.
For sure.
But like I think Vent have got a bit of hype from the shows that I filmed for them, because they have only released their demo like last week, and they had sets up before then, and then before this whole like thing came up with the coronavirus, they played Manchester as well without a demo, which is sick. And there was another band who I won't mention by name, but they hadn't recorded, and I filmed them a couple of times. And they got big off their own merit, but those sets did pretty well. But they're all taken down now because that band turned out to be scumbags, so will not be mentioned.
Fair enough. Yeah. And yeah, I totally agree. Like I don't think that, because I filmed a set and I put it out online and I got X number of viewership, makes me, have any actual like, physical ties to that band. I do have a little bit of pride to say like, hey, I am the first person that's ever put up a set of this band. I think that's something, and I just think from an outsider's perspective, like there are certain bands that I think about, and automatically I think of either a photographer or a videographer that has essentially like either helped that band through exposure or other things. Like Jesus Beast, obviously you think of Sonny on Hate 56.
Yeah.
Valmakara, I think of like Steven in California. Any band from Florida, I think of like Cameron Nunez. So I think that's just, you can't escape that in a sense, but I think you're right. Like you can't, it would be wrong for either of us to assume like, well, I filmed this band and like, I'm not doing this to essentially get a cosign or anything like that.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, yeah, we've been going for almost an hour here, but one thing that you mentioned your homie Sean Pit Cam.
Yes.
And I can't remember if I think I might have like discovered both of you guys kind of around the same time, because he was doing a lot of like mosh compilations or like pit cams and posting them on YouTube. And I was like, man, UK like goes off for bands. Like they just beat the shit out of each other. Can you do you have any stories as far as like how those came to be? Because I'm sure that wasn't done intentionally. I'm sure that was just like filming a ton of bands and you're like, man, I got to put all these in like a video of its own.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the way that I hope you found Sean was there is a Guilt Trip set, since you love Guilt Trip, where... Sorry. Sean thought it'd be a good idea to do a mic cam, but it's just a GoPro on the mic like this, facing Jake. And it is the funniest thing I have seen in my fucking life. And I can't watch it without pissing myself laughing. But yeah, Sean obviously, like, he always concentrated on kind of like the beat down and the harder, like heavier hardcore. Like,
right.
The first hardcore show he went to was, what was it again? It was some ridiculously heavy thing anyway, but it was in London. But yeah, he's not done one in a while, but yeah, it's like he calls it the PCF montage, which is Pit Cam Family Mosh Montage. Yeah, and it's just because watching people mosh and hit each other is really funny. So putting that in a compilation is great.
Yeah. It's very primal.
Yeah, I think he did one last year, maybe. He did one like last year with like some of our combined footage, but usually it's just like, it used to just be his own footage that he put in. But yeah, like, I mean, I think a few of his videos have done stupidly well with those mosh montages. Like a Russian video channel ripped one of them. And that had like another couple 100,000 views on it.
Wow.
I was very disappointed when that Aussie Man Reviews did a review of moshing and he didn't use one of Sean's videos. He used some shit one. I was like, use a pit cam one. That's the staple.
Is that the guy who's like, oh, look at these dingoes throwing their arms? Yeah.
I was like, come on, use a pit cam one. It's far better. People are actually getting hurt there. Like,
yeah, I'm always curious when I see like certain hardcore stuff hit like mainstream in a sense. Like the whole what the fuck is up, Denny's meme. Like that to me is super interesting because like that show happened like probably 6 years ago now, but people only started sharing it, years later. So that's something that I always think about. It's like, I don't care if I post this set and this band gets like 80 views, because in 5 years they could, people could share that set for whatever reason and then it like blows up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think people don't like sets. People like memes from sets. So
yeah. So that GoPro on the mic angle, was that just for that Guilt Trip set, or was there other sets of that?
I think he did quite a few, but I think most of the bands asked him to take it down. I just think Guilt Trip don't remember that it exists, so hopefully they don't watch this.
Hopefully this isn't the podcast that gets that set taken down. I know we talked about I forget if it was a specific show or if it was a fest, but you actually rigged a GoPro looking like a bird's eye view on the pit.
Yeah. It was Upsurge Fest in London. It wasn't actually myself. It was there was a documentary film crew that were filming a documentary. That would make sense since they're a documentary film crew. But yeah, it was the guy that was doing it for them. He rigged a black magic from the ceiling and then left it there. It was a good angle because you get a lot of people just like kicking their foot up, then falling over without actually hitting anyone at all. So it was pretty good for memes, but it was annoying though because the battery ran out before See You Space Cowboy and Incendiary,
which would have been
they'd have been the two sets,
crucial sets to have that for.
Yeah. But no, yeah, that was quite fun to watch. Yeah.
Yeah. That's something that I'm trying to keep, top of mind as well. Like, there are always like go-to angles for certain like live sets, but are there certain angles that you can add that little different taste of it? And I feel like I can say this because either someone can rip the idea or I can just do it next year or the next fest that we're doing. But something I wanted to do was like POV cams. So like ask for example, like Brian of Knock Loose, like, hey, when you guys play Counting Worms, can you wear a GoPro? And then you have like people like jumping on top of one another to grab the mic. And that would just be like its own video. But I think that would have been a really cool thing to see, and probably something that I'll do, in a future setting. It's just got to be the right thing. It's got to be the right vocalist and, the right amount of anticipated reaction. Have you done any weird stuff like that as well, or you kind of stick to your go-to guns in a way?
Yeah, I kind of stick to my go-to. Like, I have fully embraced the back room cam now. I used to hate it because I like being in the middle of everything, but like you do get such a clearer shot and you get everything in. So like I've started doing more of that when we've got 3 or 4 angles going. Like we had the the show that happened just before quarantine, luckily, was a Turnstile, Gag, One Step Closer, and Glitterer. But it was all quite big shows with a balcony and stuff. But that meant that we were able to do like both sides of stage, back a room, drum cam, and then during Glitter, because there was also no drums, we had one kind of just on a balcony just above the stage, which was really nice as well. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really have any GoPros anymore because I just fell out of love with them. So I think the POV cam is a good idea, but just trying to convince a vocalist to actually do that is going to be quite hard. So I commend you. Please go for it, because I would love to see it.
Yeah, I'm gonna try. Like, you know, if there's again, it needs to be the right vocalist, and I think it's got to be up front that it's like, you don't have to wear this for the entire set. Like, it's just like one song is all like I would really ask of that. And you know, so like I totally get if some bands, like I think my game plan for Wild Rose for that specifically was like, I'll have a list of like probably 10 bands that I'll ask. 2 will probably respond to that message, and then 1 might actually do it.
It's worth the go. Gotta try it.
Yeah, it's worth it. Because, you know, if that video like blows up, like, because I haven't seen, you know, anyone else really do something like that, like that could be a big thing. But we'll just have to wait and see for the next fest that we're doing.
In 2023.
Yeah, for real. So David, as we start to wrap up, how can people support what you're doing? Because I know that recently you did you opened up doing your own Patreon, and you know, what are your tags and whatnot that people can follow up? Because I highly recommend anyone who's listening that hasn't seen your stuff to definitely go check it out.
Well, if I've not put everyone off already by how much shit I talk, then it's Dai-Tan Films, which is DAI Tan Films. Yeah, the Patreon, it's $3 a month to subscribe. Like, I'm not trying to make money from it. It's more just about like any money that's supported, it goes towards buying equipment, helping us get to shows down south, things like that. It's not going to pay for it in full, but like any money towards it helps basically, and it has done so far. Like the last UK Backtrack show in Leeds, we weren't going to be able to do that, but like 3 days before, me and Katch decided to do it, and luckily there was some money from Patreon there, so I could use that, and we filmed it, and that was a lot of fun. But yeah, on Insta, it's Dai-Tan Films, Facebook Dai-Tan Films, Patreon Dai-Tan Films. My YouTube is awkward, and it is David Tan Videos, because I made it before I decided on Dai-Tan Films, because I'm a dick. So, but yeah, it's all there. And if people want to watch, that's cool. If you like Turnstile, go watch the show where the power got cut and they just decided to do it acoustic instead. That's probably the biggest one I've got. And then you can just turn it off. So There you go.
Yeah, and I definitely think that, you know, I think you're the second, you know, archivist in the world who's like, hey, like who kind of put out that ask. Did you get like any flack originally with like, oh, like another person who's asking for money for like, you know, filming shows? Because that was a huge thing when Sonny announced that he was, you know, he's like, hey, I want to do Hey 56 full time. And then people were just like, no, and like kind of ran at him with pitchforks online in a way. So I'm curious on what your reaction was.
Yeah, I did not realise that until I spoke to him in person, and he kind of explained to me how much shit he got for that, and I was blown away, because it's just when you take a step back from it being hardcore and everything else, and you just think about it, it's like, right, okay, this guy wants to put out free content for us to enjoy of something we want. We can pay if we want a little bit of money to help him. That's all I'm asking. But no, I got no shit at all, and I was very surprised, because I just decided to launch it after he'd kind of told me the stories, but I was like, I'll give it a go. But no, everyone's been really nice. Like, I've had a load of labels and stuff support me, like bands, and like even like every member of a single band supporting. And because like their sets go up there first, just whilst they're waiting to get released properly, they could also just take the YouTube link and send it to everyone else. But now, like, everyone's been really supportive. I've had no shit yet, so hopefully it continues, and hopefully the Scoped Patreon starts soon as well.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess if because there's been a couple people that have asked me like like you should definitely do that. You should definitely get some financial support. And I guess like my thoughts around that, like I I go like back and forth, but I think I reside mainly on like um I much I would much rather just keep building what we're doing before I like do that ask. And
Yeah.
I think the ask is not just like give me all your money, because there's different levels of like, hey, my Patreon is $3 a month, and then I think Sunny's like initial one is 2, but then he has different levels like 5 and 10 and varying degrees, and you get different things. And I commend like Sunny for like not only like pioneering this whole like weird hobby that you and I love, and have like you said earlier, it takes a special person to have this kind of obsession with this art form, but it's also like him pioneering like it's very common in the creative world for people to be like, support me on my Patreon and you get blah blah blah. Like I'm sure majority of the people who are like complaining about Patreon will more than happy do like OnlyFans for like girls that they like. Obviously that's maybe a little bit different, but it's kind of the same thing. Like I've provided you value, and because I've provided you value for free with no ask really for X number of years, now I feel like I'm putting that ask out there. And again, like it's like the videos don't stop if certain people aren't supporting.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you are going to get the video for free anyway. It's just that we have such long list of stuff to go out. If you're desperate to see a singular set, you can pay, like the price of a fucking Coke to go watch it. Cool, there you go, and you've got a subscription for a month.
Yeah.
To be fair, I was actually thinking of doing OnlyFans. Not that anybody wants to see that kind of OnlyFans from me, but I was just like, everyone's got it on their phone already anyway, might as well. But then I was like, nah, I'll do Patreon instead. But no, like I fully support everything you guys do, because I think the full package you do of like photography, the video, and then the guys you've got doing audio as well, and like working together as such a close knit team is really cool. Because obviously we're just videographers, but like I would not be able to do this without Kat and Greg and Sean and Owen and like everyone else that I rely on. Like Ditan Films isn't just me, it's everyone. I am a control freak, so I like fully do all the editing and stuff because I'm just that way. But yeah, I wouldn't be able to do this without everyone else that like films with me. So
yeah, and I think we all like I said earlier, like we all have different like strengths and weaknesses as far as like I could never imagine doing some of the things that Sunny does as far as like the technical computer savviness of like how he's automated his entire system of releasing sets, voting for sets. But I also know like, maybe he doesn't have the time or maybe interest to do something like a podcast or things like that. So I think it's, everyone's doing their own thing. And I think, and I would argue that like every main archivist or, person who has like a big, like a small to big platform for promoting bands should be supported to some degree. But yeah, I think for Scoped, unless I get like 50 messages from people being like, I will give you money, like I won't start that probably in the next couple of years, if I'm being completely honest, because I again want to just keep building it. So like when there is like an ask, there's going to be potentially more return, because I feel like I'm early still in the whole like process.
Come on.
That's like, I know that I'm maybe the again the Canadian Hate 56 or the Canadian guy who's doing this for the scene, but I want to just I don't want to come off as just like I get in and I get a little bit of respect, and then it's like I'm asking people for support in that way. I just want to keep on doing things. Like I've told, like I'm 27 now, and I told myself like I would at most do this until I'm 30, and then at 30 I would probably be like, okay, can I can I get a little coin for the efforts? And again, like I don't think I would necessarily try to have it where I'm trying to have my full income be off of my videos, because I don't think that that's necessarily going to happen. But if that can supplement some things, I know my wife would be a little bit more stoked on that, I guess, because it's a lot of time to sit down and edit these sets and make this content. So it's a lot of sacrifice, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah, well, I'm usually like away all weekend, get back, work all throughout the week, but at night edit the sets. So like, yeah, my whole world revolves around this, and I should probably get a life because I'm already past that 30 mark. So if you just want to move to Scotland, I'll retire. Great, that'd be fucking perfect. Like,
I know that we got to end this, but I want to so this is something that's been on my mind, is that would you get like TLC out in Europe, like the TV network? Or do you know what that is?
No, I thought you meant like the Amazing Band, but no.
Oh, so like TLC, I think it was like the Learning Channel. But they had this show when I was growing up called Trading Spaces, and it would be like two families would like swap houses, and like they would, you know, someone would do someone's like living room, and then the other people do the kitchen. And it was always like funny to see the different takes on like, oh, I love the color purple. And then the other family comes back, they're like, I fucking hate the color purple. But something that came on mind maybe a few months ago was like, you know, the majority of people who like video fests, that's only in their like, you know, that's home base for them. Like, again, Sunny, this is Hardcore and Sunny are very, very tied together. Me and Wild Rose, Steven and Sound and Fury, you and Outbreak. But I've always been curious if like, is there a parallel universe where people who film stuff are like circulating around the world, as far as like Spencer films Outbreak 2021, but then David does Wild Rose, and then Sunny does this, and like, because I feel like that would ultimately be the best way to fully like get the word out for like every single fest, because you know a lot of people, you know, I filmed Wild Rose or the Calgary Fest for so many years, and then Sunny went there, and then so many people were like exposed to that festival.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, but I couldn't do This Is Hardcore just from looking at the videos and the amount of stage potatoes on the side and having to fight past them. I don't know how I'd do it. Like, honestly, just
don't have the arm strength to do this for like 30 bands a day.
Not a chance. I don't know how the fuck that guy does it, honestly. I was just watching him at the Half Heart shows, like, how are you doing this? This is painful. Like,
yeah,
he's a robot. He is a robot. He's not a real human being. I refuse to believe it. He's a robot.
Yeah, just like kind of takes off the skin. It's just the Terminator eye.
Exactly.
Just plugged in. Cool. Well, anyways, like that whole like alternate reality, I don't think that would ever happen, but it would be cool. I think what's probably more likely to happen is like either other people like collaborating or shooting the same fest. Like I would love to come, if I was ever in Europe and there was a show and like I could help multicam that with you, like that would just be a treat for me. Just like not like no gain for the channel, just for like me to have that as an experience. So
yeah,
maybe we can make that work one day.
Hopefully so. Like I think Cameron was meant to be over in Europe at some point, and I was like looking forward to hopefully meeting him, but I think that got cancelled because of coronavirus. So,
yeah, he was there with Hollywood Undead, and then they were like, we got to get out of here before it gets bad.
Well, I would not have been there, but it would have been nice to meet him. So
yeah. Cool. Well, definitely to anyone who's watching or listening, definitely go and check out David's stuff. A very hardworking man in what arguably a more challenging scene as far as just where you're placed in the world. And, you know, I am very inspired by what you're doing and your dedication to that scene. And I hope people recognize that. Before we end the podcast, as we do tradition, is sharing, the guest shares their favorite mosh story. And I feel like with Sean's like pit cam videos. Like there's a variety of stories that you could share to kind of send us off.
There is so many. I mean, probably one of my personal favorites is when I stage dived trapped under ice and I pulled every single muscle down my arm. And it was the worst stage dive ever as well. That was a lot of fun.
You pulled every muscle?
Yeah, like my whole arm was fucked, and I still to this day have no idea how I did it. I'm trying to think. There's honestly been so many that like it's hard to put into words. To be honest, I'm just gonna say Eastern Europe beatdown fests where they have 2 ambulances on site all day. That is my favourite mosh thing ever. That is Return to Strength festival in Germany, the best time ever, honestly.
Wow. They have ambulances on site for that festival.
2 ambulances all day. I think one of the years we played was Downpresser headlining. And yeah, it was like Downpresser, Nasty, Desolated, and it was just watching people get carted out continually over and over again.
Yikes.
It was just like a rotating door of people getting injured. It was fucking incredible.
Yeah, I didn't have to actually, think about like things as necessary as like mosh medics at festivals and things like that, because, getting put in a position where it's like so-and-so is bleeding or so-and-so is like knocked the fuck out and they need to get on out of here. Yeah, it's very crucial for that kind of music for sure.
I'm just gonna give strict instructions. Like, if any of us gets knocked out, just pick up the camera and start filming.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care for our well-being. Just pick up the camera. That's fine. Just keep filming. Yeah. It's all good.
Sweet. Well, David, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day. I know that we got a crazy time difference, so I appreciate you taking some time, making it work.
Anytime.
Anything else you want to send off the podcast with before we end it?
Just general shout out to obviously everyone that works with me and my channel, helping it be what it is. Shout out Spencer, shout out Sunny, shout out 197 Media, Cameron as well. Literally, if you want to start doing video, do it, because the most friendly people in the world I've met have been part of the kind of video community around the world for hardcore. I've never met anyone that I've like not got on with or not liked. Everyone has been so friendly and welcoming and is always really helpful with any advice. And I hope that the Archivist Guild makes a comeback, because it's a great idea and I hope it's used more often. But especially thank you, Spencer.
Definitely something I need to put a little bit more effort in, especially with the current times. But yes, thank you for again for sending us off with such good words of wisdom. And stay safe. And thanks again for coming on the pod.
Thank you. I'm going to go post a sex. It's almost my time. So have fun.
Sounds good.